First time in ages. Got Heidi Mk1 Escort out. Marks on the prop shaft are absolutely mullered. This bit can be an absolute nightmare. Fail. Completely missed the bucket. Why am I changing the oil? All will be revealed. Been round here for absolutely hours. Beautiful girlfriend Kat has just popped round. I've actually found something quite worrying. That whole bending it, trial and error, trial and error. I don't buy them, they're junk. Now the big gun, I just noticed an issue. Now she's proper free. Oh, right, now we're pretty stuck. She's out. Sort of. Well, we got our answer, people. Hello and welcome to this video. I'm Marcus Hayes and you joined me at the end of a day round here at the garage. I came round here in Maud, my Maud Mk1 Escort, who is still on daily duties. I've got Esther, my ST170 powered Mk1 Escort, up on axle stands, and I'll explain everything I've been looking at on her in a minute. But for the first time in ages, I've actually got Heidi, my hearing aid beige Maud Mk1 Escort out. The first thing I did when I came around here today was have a little bit of a tidy up in Heidi's garage. I had loads of stuff on the bonnet of Heidi, but her front wings were actually on the bonnet, which makes it a lot harder to put stuff on the bonnet. So I've reattached her front wings, and yeah, it's going to be a lot easier to put stuff on the bonnet if I ever need to. But yeah, I've had a little bit of a tidy up in my garage. Probably doesn't look much to you, but it is a bit tidier than it was. Anyway, I've spent hours today having a look at this vibration that I've got with Esther. I want to send a massive thanks out to everyone who offered your advice in the recent video. Those of you that suggested that the driver's side engine mount may have been put under extra strain due to the gearbox mount being loose and the gearbox being tilted towards the driver's side were absolutely right. But when I had a look at it, it seemed fine to me. Underneath the car, I had a look at the exhaust mount that I added recently, because one of you guys said that sometimes those cotton reels can cause quite a lot of vibration through the chassis, but even with that undone, the vibration was still there. I did notice that there were some marks on the prop shaft where the bolts for the handbrake and the harness eyes were poking through the floor and rubbing on the prop shaft, but with those moved out the way, the vibration was also still there. So then I started looking at the gearbox mount itself, which isn't ideal, but it has been like that ever since I fitted the RX-8 gearbox, and I've never had as much vibration going through the chassis as I have recently. I tried putting rubber washers and grommets in various places just to see if the vibration was improved, but nothing I tried got rid of the vibration. So then I decided that I was going to remove the gearbox as planned to try and figure out what has been causing this vibration. Now, one thing I have noticed today, which is something I've noticed on Maud as well, is that I'm getting oil down where number 4 spark plug is. You can see that the O-rings on these bolts are absolutely mullered, just like Maud's were. I actually got a rocker cover gasket and some O-rings through the post the other day, which were for Maud. I'd already bought the O-rings separate, and then I decided to buy a gasket, and on eBay they do the gasket and the O-rings. So I was going to bung them on Maud, but I think because Esther is more important than Maud, I'm going to throw that gasket and O-rings on Esther's rocker cover before I leave here today. So cue the music. Some of these are really bad, look at that. When the O-rings are mullered, the bolts end up getting done up too tight, which obviously ruins the gasket. This bit can be an absolute nightmare. You need this round bit, this side of the gasket like that. Now, I don't actually know what the torque settings are on these, so I'm just going to nip them up and I'll look it up later. Don't want to ruin the new gasket. I've always gone from the middle outwards, but someone said to me recently that on a rocker cover you should go from the outwards in. So All Right, seeing as I've already been round here later than planned and I haven't really done much today apart from poke around at the gearbox mount, I think I'm going to make a head start on taking this thing apart to replace the gearbox and the clutch potentially. So yeah, I'm going to start with draining the fluids, then I'll get her back on all fours and get her back in the garage and then just start stripping. Replace the filter now. If you're wondering why am I changing the oil to do the gearbox, all will be revealed later. I'm putting a genuine Ford oil filter on it from my friends at Burton Power. Alright, it's actually getting a bit too dark to work in here now, but I've stripped some bits, loosened some bits. I've loosened the water rail, started taking out the exhaust manifold nuts. I need to disconnect the rest of the system before I can actually disconnect the manifold fully from the head. In the past I've had to fully remove the water rail, but I've loosened it and I'm going to see if I can get away with just loosening it. But yeah, she's slowly coming apart. It's actually quite bright out here. But yeah, I've got tools and stuff to clean up. Got to get Heidi back in her garage and then I'm going to jump in moored and make my way home. I'll be back round here tomorrow to continue stripping Esther down, ready for me to swap the gearbox and the clutch, or at least to investigate what's going on with the gearbox and clutch. And I'm also going to be fitting a part that I've wanted to fit for years. So I'll have to wait till tomorrow for another busy day, but you'll only have to wait a couple of seconds, so I'll see you then. I want to interrupt this video very briefly to announce the release of the latest batch of official Marcus Hayes clothing. I've been banging on about these a little bit in the videos recently, and these are the new embroidered MH t-shirts, available in 7 colours. We've got the light blue one with the dark blue MH stitching, the black shirt with the light blue MH stitching. These are kind of inspired by Esther, my Mk1 Escort, and we've got the beige shirt with the brown MH stitching, which is kind of inspired by Heidi, my hearing aid beige Mk2 Escort Mordor. And we've got this grey shirt with the light blue, navy shirt with the white, red shirt with the white, and this purple shirt with the white, which I actually had made up for my beautiful girlfriend Kat, but they're available to any of you guys that want them as well. As usual, all the garments are super high quality. We've got custom printed neck labels, and yeah, as I say, available in 7 colours. Now, realistically, the only way that I can offer so many colours in all the sizes is by doing a pre-order. So for the next 5 days, you'll be able to go over to my website at marcushayesuk.com and place your orders. Then at the end of the 5 days, the shirts should be delivered within 3 weeks for UK orders. So that means that all UK orders should be delivered within about 4 weeks from when this video goes live. Now, I did have a very limited number of these new t-shirts for sale at the Ford show and the Classic Ford show recently. So some of you guys that were at the show were able to grab these shirts before anyone else in the world. And I do have very few of some of them left in stock. So if you're one of the first people to jump on the pre-order, you actually won't have to wait weeks for yours. So do place your orders as soon as you can for a chance to get yours in literally a matter of days. As usual, no pressure if none of these bits tickle your fancy. Do have plenty of other merchandise on the website. I will say though that if you order any of the pre-order items with any of the other items apart from stickers and key rings, then I will be holding on to the other bits and sending those out when the pre-order items come in, just so that I don't have to pay twice for postage. But one thing I can tell you is that if you jump on the pre-order for these new t-shirts, you're going to save 10% on all of them. So head over to my website at marcushayesuk.com to grab your bits, and I want to send a massive thanks in advance to anyone who does decide to jump on the pre-order. But with that being said, it's back to the video. And just like that, we're into a new day. It's another absolute scorcher, and I've jumped in moored to head over to my other garage. The main objectives with regards to the gearbox and clutch swap in Esther is to remove the old gearbox today and modify the new one so that it's ready to go in. I haven't got the clutch release bearing through the post yet, but I suppose I could bolt the new clutch onto Esther's flywheel. But as I mentioned yesterday, there is something else I want to fit to Esther's engine today. So I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to get to the garage, I'm going to get Esther jacked up in the air, I'm going to crack on with stripping her down a bit more, and then I'll continue this video once I've got the engine supported by the engine hoist, and then I'll show you this new part that I'm going to be fitting. And it's something I've wanted for, well, years. Well, I've been round here for absolutely hours. There's one thing in particular that has been taking up loads of my time, but I'll come to that in a minute. Got Esther up on axle stands like she was yesterday. My beautiful girlfriend Kat has just popped round, and I've got Heidi out of her garage mainly so that I could get the engine hoist out of her garage. And yeah, I've made quite a bit of progress in terms of stripping Esther down, and I've actually found something quite worrying, but it's probably what has been causing my issues. As you can see, I've removed the exhaust manifold, I moved the water rail off completely. Actually found an easier way to undo the bolts on the water rail. Can be a bit of a nightmare, I'll quickly show you that. Yeah, it's got 4 bolts that hold this part of the water rail to this part of the water rail, and the bolt that's in there particularly and the one that's under there are a nightmare to get to. But I found if I use this long sort of Allen key thing and then put that into a 10mm socket and that into this pinless UJ and then into this bar and then into the ratchet, I'm actually able to undo them quite easily. So yeah, I've literally spent an hour or more removing this water rail in the past and trying to refit it, but yeah, removing it this time was much easier. You can see that the hoist is actually holding the weight of the engine at the moment. I've undone all electrical things like the crank sensor, coolant sensor. I've undone all the bell housing bolts except for 2. As you can see, the cross member and stuff has been removed, and yeah, I'm very close to be ready to try and pull the engine away from the gearbox, and then that'll allow me to lower the gearbox out easily. But the worrying thing that I found that might explain what some of the noises were was that hole that you can see there in the bell housing, quite close to where the clutch arm is, quite close to where the slave cylinder for the clutch mounts to the bell housing. And yeah, I'm guessing that something inside the bell housing, I'm hoping it's just the clutch, has disintegrated and decided to exit the bell housing, and it's made that hole so that it can exit the bell housing. Now I'll just take you underneath the car, show you what's going on under there, and then I'll be able to explain why I bothered draining the oil out of the car yesterday. So as you can see, the cross member is out of the way. I had to undo the anti-roll bar to do that, usual procedure. And you'll see that the engine doesn't have a sump, and that's because I'm replacing the sump today. Going to be fitting a G19 alloy sump, and I'll show you that in a minute. And that sump uses an 1800 CVH Sierra pickup pipe, which is this. And that was actually given to me ages ago now by a guy called Scott Norris. Massive thanks again for the pickup pipe, Scott. I know it's been in my garage for ages, but yeah, I finally got the sump that I want. So yeah, that pickup's coming well handy. And it's actually this pickup pipe that has cost me so many hours today. I totally forgot that you need to modify it a bit to fit. The bend of this pipe isn't correct for an ST170, so when you bolt it on, the pipe sort of comes over this way, so you have to sort of bend it out. And yeah, I sort of enlarged the hole on this bracket, enlarged one of the holes on this bit, and yeah, I've just been bending it, trial and error. It's been fitted and removed loads of times until I could actually get it to fit on the engine. And then when I tried the G19 sump on, this was actually sort of fouling on the edge of the hole for the pickup pipe on the sump, so then I had to bend this forward slightly. But yeah, got it bolted on. It's worth noting that with the old sump, the pickup pipe had a tab that lined up with, I think it was this bolt, using this extended stud thing. So yeah, I just had to swap that for the bolt that was in here. I've already cleaned the face where the sump's going to go, so I think it's about time I showed you the new sump. So here is said new sump. It's a cast alloy sump that's actually been made out of a genuine Ford sump that has then been modified to fit in an old school Escort. There's the old sump. Don't buy them, they're junk. I'm actually really happy with how this looks. One thing I have noticed straight away in terms of clearance, because not only do these sumps leak, but they also don't give you the clearance that's ideal. And yeah, I found that this little step bit here was the reason why there wasn't enough clearance between the sump and the steering rack, whereas this one pretty much goes straight. And I think the depth is slightly shallower on this. It's not much in it, to be honest, but yeah, it doesn't have this step that goes here. And yeah, apart from that, this angle's pretty much the same, but that's not really the issue. And yeah, basically from here down to here is the original Ford sump, and they basically cut the bottom off and then they fabricate this sort of bowl, so that it's a rear bowl rear drive sump. Now, because it's cast alloy, it's a lot more rigid than the tin sumps. The tin sumps, the flange tends to bend when you do the bolts up, even if you do follow the torque settings that are given with this sump. But if you've been watching my videos, you'll know I've tried loads of different gaskets, different methods, and I can't get these to seal because the flange just warps. But with a cast alloy sump, the flange isn't going to warp. You can do the bolts up to the Ford spec because it's a Ford sump. And one thing I really like about these is that they've actually got a groove in the flange for the gasket, whereas that one's just flat. So when you're doing the sump up, the gasket can try and sort of get squeezed out the side, whereas with this one, it's going to be caught in the groove. And if I remember rightly, this is actually a silver top Z-Tech sump that's been converted. But yeah, the bolt pattern is the same as a black top, as far as I'm aware. I'll just flip it over so you can see the underneath. But yeah, this one's got a sort of wing on the side here, and it's not as deep. So yeah, that's what they've done to make the capacity right, without risking it sort of hanging down lower than your cross member and risking it getting damaged. Now, G19 do their own style of dipstick, which screws into there, which I didn't bother buying. I've got a bung to go in there, and I'm going to try and utilise the stock Z-Tech dipstick, which is how I had Esther's dipstick when I was using this sump. So yeah, that is the new alloy sump, and I'm still waiting for them to make another one for Maud, which is taking ages, but at least I've got one. Anyway, I'm going to throw this sump onto Esther's ST170 engine, and then we can finally get the gearbox and engine separated to see exactly what's going on inside her bell housing. Now, I was going to fit the gasket dry, but I'm bringing out the big guns. Remember, I think it was on the Ignition Advantages channel that the guy said that you should always at least put it in the four corners, and I might put it on the semicircle bits as well. And it appears that my sump hasn't got a cutout for this little tab on the gasket, like this. So I suppose I should cut that bit of the gasket off, because that's just going to stop it sitting in there. That's all the bolts in. Much easier to put the sump on when the gasket is sitting in a groove. Just need to have a look on the internet now to see what the torque should be. Found a forum talking about a race line sump, which is basically the same. It's a cast alloy sump, and that said you should do them at 10 foot-pounds, then 15, and then 18. So that's what I'm going with. I'm going to start with the outer ones. I've always started with the inner ones, but I'm pretty sure that's wrong. Just start with the outer ones. Well, there it is. G19 sump is fitted. So good to not see gasket getting squeezed out the side. Got a little bit of sealer getting squeezed out of the side there, which is totally fine. With the new sump fitted, it's now time to finally see exactly what's been going on inside Esther's bell housing. Now, because the engine is already being supported by the hoist, I've literally got to just undo two bolts that are holding the gearbox to the adapter plate that's attached to the engine. and then the engine should separate from the gearbox. I am going to put an axle stand under the bell housing though, because at the moment the only thing holding the front of the gearbox up is the engine and the hoist. Just lower this down now so the gearbox is sitting on that axle stand like so. Literally got one bolt here which is already loose because it was fouling the new sump. It was poking through the adapter plate too much, but I'll just stack some washers on it when I put it back together. That's one. Just noticed an issue, so maybe I'll have to use their dipstick. I definitely ain't going to get one of them before the show at the weekend. Shouldn't have left such an awkward bolt as the last one. So yeah, that bolt's actually too long to come out, so I definitely need to remember to put that bolt loosely back in there and I'll lift the new gearbox into place. So, engine's pretty much separated now. Bingo. Alright, so the engine and gearbox are pretty much separated. You can see marks on the clutch here. Something's been flying around in there. As it turned out, the fuel pipes were preventing the engine from being dragged forward enough to fully separate from the gearbox. There we go. Alright, now she's proper free.
Lots of fuel falling out there.
Yep, there will be. Expensive stuff nowadays.
Exactly.
That's hopefully going to hold this up enough for me to get this off. Oh, one thing I did forget to do is undo the prop shaft. It's too late now. Alright, now we're pretty stuck. Just got to get like the middle bit in terms of the weight.
Yeah.
Better if I had two jacks, but let's undo that properly. Too tight. There you go. Alright, drop the handbrake. Alright, put it on. Don't fall out. Just gracefully lower down to the ground. That's what we want. You know, I don't think the car's high enough to get this box out either. That won't be an issue. Shifter. She's out. Sort of. Yeah, I think I'm going to have to pull the gearbox out front ways. I think when I put the other gearbox in, I have to remember to have the car a bit higher. Alright, so the RX-8 gearbox is out. I've flipped it up because it's still got oil in it. Now what I saw inside the front of the gearbox, inside the bell housing, everything seemed still intact. So I'm now going to get under the car and have a look at the clutch. So at first glance, I can see that all the bolts are still in the clutch. All the fingers are still intact. But yeah, you can see in general round the clutch, it's just been a bit beaten up. But yeah, I think I'm going to get the clutch off and then we can have a proper look at the friction plate as well. Well, we got our answer, people. At least we know now what it was causing the vibration. Obviously, because the clutch has got this whole piece missing, it's then not balanced. So once you get the revs up, it just starts vibrating, just like an unbalanced wheel would. And we also know what caused the hole in the bell housing. Now, I've had AP racing clutches fail on me in the past, but never quite as bad as that. Normally, you know, this little tab here comes off, which has obviously happened here and here, and then the spring came out once. Yeah, and sometimes it just, you know, makes the springs really rattle about. But yeah, that is yeah, that's nuts. So probably could have left the gearbox in, but yeah, I do suspect that it's leaking oil, maybe from one of them bungs, maybe not. Obviously now I've got the new sump on Esther, I'll be able to fully see if it was leaking or not, but you know, we've taken the gearbox out now. And yeah, it always was really whiny you know, ever since I've had that RX-8 gearbox, yeah, I think I'm going to chuck the other one in that I picked up recently, which is another second-hand gearbox, so who knows what it's like. This definitely won't be going back in, and I've got a brand new paddle clutch to go in anyway. Now, it's getting a bit late, and I really don't want to be around here as late as I was yesterday. As you can see, I've still got parts and tools all over the floor. I'm going to have to refit the cross member and the anti-roll bar, just so that I can actually get Esther rollable, so I can get her back in her garage. I was planning to modify the new gearbox so that it's ready to go in, but I don't think I'm going to have time to do that today either. So yeah, I'm just going to crack on with getting Esther rollable so I can put her away. Not sure what I'm going to do about this situation. I might have to actually run the G19 dipstick, which goes in the sump down there. And then yeah, it will have to sort of come up here somewhere, which is where all my wires and stuff are sort of gathered. So that might not be convenient, but yeah, this I think this is going to work. I thought I'd be able to use the normal dipstick, but there you go. Anyway, I'm going to crack on with sorting out all this mess. So I'm going to end this video here. If you did think it was any good, please do give it a thumbs up and a share. If you didn't, give it a thumbs down. Click subscribe to keep up to date with all my future uploads, and check the links in the description to my social media and my website. I'll also leave a link to my Patreon down there. Massive thanks to all my patrons. I really appreciate your support. I'll leave my email address in the description for anyone who wants to contact me. But other than that, until next time, thanks for watching.